And let's go. Okay. So we had you in the 1940s. We had you as a teenager working different jobs. We had you learning a little bit about opera. We had you with at Savoyas. So, when did you start high school?
Well, 43.
You started high school in 1943.
Right.
You were 14 years old.
Right.
And
graduated in 47, so
okay.
I think.
Do you have any vivid memories of junior high school, being at Washington School?
Oh, sure.
What was new about it from your previous school?
Well, we had lockers, hallways. You had Mr. Smith's class.
Who was Mr. Smith?
That was if you were if you were a problem, you were in Mr. Smith's class.
So discipline?
Yeah, well, yeah, more or less.
And did you have gym class?
Oh, yeah.
How'd you do in gym class?
Not bad. I'm not a jock, as I stated earlier.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I went to gym. I did my exercises.
What was your favorite class in school, in junior high?
Well, I liked them all. We had Miss Sarah for music. Math, English.
What section were you in?
I think O.
You were in the O section?
I think the O. It was HERO, wasn't it?
Heroics.
I see you, yeah.
And
now
H was the top, E was the second, R.
Oh,
you were in the
problem
going down?
The only discrimination, now that you refresh my memory, if you were from the east side, you never got the HER.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, right.
So that was like ability grouping, or what they thought was
I don't know how they did it, but I'm going to use a term. All the Americans from the west side were HER.
And so O was the top section that
I don't know.
East Side kid could
I'm trying to think if anybody from the east side was HER. I don't know. I didn't.
Okay. Well,
that wasn't my concern.
Okay. Did you join any clubs or other activities?
Oh, I was in a musical with Rita Canali.
What did you do in the musical? Did you sing?
Yeah, we had a song. I sang with her.
Okay, on the stage at Washington School.
Right. That's where the Italians people, the traveling group of Italian plays, that's where they would go to Washington School.
Mm-hmm. And then you graduated, went to Bloom.
Right.
Class of 47. Okay, now what do you remember about high school?
Interesting.
Well, interesting is what? Tell me more.
Well, I enjoyed it.
You were engaged? Did you work hard? Did you do your homework? Did you?
I probably could have done. I probably could work harder. I did what I had to do.
What about meeting new people?
Met a lot of new people, yeah.
And new people from Chicago Heights, different ethnic groups, people from Homewood Flossmoor.
Well, at that time, if you remember, you probably don't remember, we had students from Frankfurt. We had some students from Crete. We had some from Homewood. We went, I think, to 183rd Street. We had a couple.
So it was beyond the lines of Bloom Township, but that included the Homewood Flossmoor, but a lot of other places too, sending their high school students. Did the other kids from your neighborhood or who were Italian, who were your age, did they go to high school?
Oh, yeah.
All of them?
I think all of them.
Did they finish?
Yeah, they were in my class.
So by the time you got into high school, it was the norm,
right,
for boys, poor, relatively poor, ethnic, from the east side, to go to high school and to finish.
Right.
Okay, that goes against my understanding, but I don't know everything.
I think at that time the war was over, the 45. So I can remember the end of World War II, and
yeah. What about the end of World War II? You would have been in high school.
Right, I remember.
What did people do?
Celebrate.
How?
Some marched, some called each other, get some of our make communication with our relatives. My mother's whole family was in Italy at that time. I didn't meet my grandfather until I was 1960, my maternal grandfather.
When you traveled to Italy.
Right.
And what about that aspect of it? Did any of the relatives or paesani from the original town happen to be in the U.S. Army and end up going to visit the town and telling you and your mother
my mother's brother, Uncle C. Antonio, was a prisoner of war of the Americans. And
where was he stationed? Where was he?
Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Ah.
And then he was at Fort Story, Virginia.
Did you go to see him?
I did not. My mother and my sister Mary went to Missouri, went to Virginia to see him.
And what was the report back from him?
Oh, that picture up there. You see that there? That's that one. Over the proclamation.
That's the picture that he made?
Yeah, Uncle Tony brought that.
He made this while he was in prison?
Yeah, while they were here.
And your mother brought this back home?
Yeah, right.
And what does that say in the corner?
I don't know.
It says something like, looks like a 44, 1944.
Yeah, that's close enough.
Narvis. What was his name?
It might have been one of his buddies in the camp.
Oh, okay. Not necessarily done by him.
Probably not. He got it, gave it to her. He gave it to her. But
what did your mother bring to him?
I don't know.
Did
they treated...
offer to bring you?
No, I never traveled.
Uh-huh. And how long was your mother gone? Do you remember?
Oh, a week.
Each place?
Probably Leonard Wood, maybe 3 or 4 days. Virginia, about a week. They had to take the train to both places.
Uh-huh. And did he ever come to America on his own later?
Oh, yeah. He came. My mother applied for filed a petition for him to come to the United States, and he did come. He was a cabinet maker. He lived with us for a while, and we lived on Hawthorne.
This would have been in the 1960s?
Probably 50s, 50s, between late 50s and 60s in that area.
Did he get any preference because he had been a POW here?
No, he came.
And do you know, there was a decision that they had to make after Italy surrendered as to whether or not they wanted to continue as a belligerent or as a cooperative person. Did he have any problem with that?
No, he had no problems. I don't think so.
And they ended up paying them a little bit if they.
They were treated very well. Comparison to the English, my uncle Pietro was a prisoner of war of the English in Libya, in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And he could speak English, but he wouldn't speak it. They were treated terrible by the British.
Okay, is that where your uncle was captured in North Africa?
Yes. No, Theo Pietro was captured in Ethiopia, in that area.
Oh, okay.
And Uncle Tony was in Libya.
Okay. So, so you did have that in your experience. What about aid, sending aid back, care packages or what not to the hometown, your mother's hometown?
We sent them every month.
Every month? What do you remember any of the details
Clothes,
of those?
Probably aspirin, clothes, things of that nature.
And how were those packages prepared?
Put them in a box, sew with cloth, walk to the post office and mail them.
Why the cloth?
I guess to preserve the box. I don't know. It was a better shipping that way.
Okay, so that was a requirement. But could you have done it more often than once a month, or what?
Well, whenever we had enough to send over, If get a letter that my younger uncle, was going to get a job in Italy. He was about 3 years older than I am and needed a windbreaker of some sort. And we got the letter. My mother bought it. We sent it.
Okay. So it was that specific.
Oh, yeah.
And how long did it go on?
I would say at least 2 or 3 years.
In 1947, after you were out of high school?
Maybe. I don't remember. No, it was 45, 46.
Okay.
Maybe beginning of 47.
Well, there was a possibility of sending aid as early as 1944, the beginning of 1944.
Could be.
Were they doing it then too?
If there was communication by letter,
Mm-hmm.
And again.
Do you have any of those letters?
No. My mother had them. When we moved, probably somewhere got thrown out. No.
They would be very interesting, very valuable if we had them to learn about
I
that.
don't have any.
You don't have any
I
for
save a
sure?
lot of letters, but I don't have any.
Okay. Well, back to you in high school. Uh, what interesting events or experiences do you remember from
The
high
big
school?
experience, we had a strike
What strike?
at Bloom.
The school strike?
Yeah,
Why?
absolutely. They were against Mr. Mead, the superintendent,
Oh, yeah.
Raymond Mead.
What did he do? Why? What was the strike
Somebody
over?
had called a strike. Students who met in the gym. It was terrible.
Did you participate?
I was against the strike. Yeah. Yes, participated as extra.
But what was? You don't know what the issue was?
I really don't. It didn't make sense.
Did it have anything to do with ethnicity, class?
No, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about what was? Were you a member of any clubs, organizations?
I was not too active. I probably was. I had Latin. I probably was in a Latin club with Miss Her,
Mm-hmm.
and oh, that's about it.
So, and you used your high school Latin later on when you did that appeal to the Vatican?
No, it was all in English and
Mm.
Italian.
Okay. Now, how well did you know Italian? Did you read and write Italian? Were there Italian language materials in your house?
We have a newspaper, and my mother spoke Italian. And
You, what newspaper?
the one from New York, Progresso.
Il Progresso.
Yeah.
Okay. Your father had a subscription to it, or your mother?
We got it somehow.
And it was always there?
But if I needed it, yeah,
And you read it?
would read it. Yes.
Now, could you write in Italian?
Never tried.
Have you ever been taught Italian grammar rules?
No.
Okay. Okay, so you're
I was able to navigate in the neighborhood. You know, worked in a grocery store, Pirandozzi. You know, as a stock boy, whatever.
mm-hmm.
Small grocery store.
So that's another job that you had. How
Oh, yeah.
old were you at that time?
Maybe 12, 11.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting. Talking to the ladies in the grocery store.
Okay.
I worked. I kept busy all the time.
So, like when you were in high school, would you work on weeknights?
No. When I was in high school, I would work summers. You know, at
Mm-hmm.
the racetrack.
And were you working at Savoyas?
Yeah, I always. I mean, it was right next door.
Mm-hmm.
They always needed some help, and I was willing to work.
Okay.
It was good meeting people. I can remember working at Savoy's, and on a Saturday, and when you called the other day, it reminded me, Justice Scariano. They would come in on Saturday for lunch.
Oh, yeah.
The Justice, Gabriel Prati, and Carl D'Amico.
Oh, yeah.
That we call them the gourmet group.
Okay, now they were meeting together because they liked the food, or
Probably just they were there.
now, refresh my memory. Who are those people?
Well, you know, Justice Scariano.
Okay.
Gabriel Prati was a lawyer. And Carl D'Amico from D'Amico Macaroni Company,
He was
the son one of the founders of
okay.
Mamma
And
Mia Spaghetti.
he was a client of Tony's, I assume.
I would imagine at that time I wasn't familiar with
Mhm.
but after that, yeah, had to be.
So, what was your? You were in high school,
Probably in high school.
and these guys came in, and
For lunch.
were you serving them, or
I
were you
know.
bussing the dishes, or what?
Washing the dishes or doing whatever I had to do. I'd see them, say hello to them.
But you didn't know what they were talking about?
No.
Did they speak a lot of Italian?
I doubt it. Probably Carl didn't speak Italian.
Mm-hmm.
D'Amico. No.
Okay, and what about politics in those days? When before you, while you were still in high school?
Well, I can remember the Dewey Truman election.
48.
Yeah.
What do you remember about it?
Well, my high school classmates were all for Dewey, and I was for Truman.
Mm-hmm. And so, was there, sort of mock election, or?
No, I don't think we did. No, don't remember.
Well, what about the Italians in the neighborhood? What about your father? Did you follow his politics?
My father was not political, but he probably was, I would say, a Democrat.
He didn't really discuss it with you?
No. I mean, he was not political. He didn't look for a political job. He didn't look for favors.
Was there local campaigning going on? Was there a precinct captain who came around or trying to influence the vote? Either on the national, probably be more prominent on the local election.
I don't remember anything specific.
Okay. Okay, you don't remember Hap Bruno being involved?
Well, Hap Bruno was a neighbor. He lived on Fifth Avenue, and I remember, he ran for township office.
And this would have been is still in the 40s or going to the 50s for that?
Probably in the 50s somewhere.
Mm-hmm. But you don't remember him being politically active door to door?
I know he was political.
Yeah. Okay. You graduated from high school. Do you remember where in your class you were ranked?
I have no idea.
You were not first in your class?
No.
You were not last in the class?
I graduated.
You graduated. You were you a member of the National Honor Society?
No, I was not.
Okay. So
I got a D in typing.
But you took typing.
Yeah, personal typing.
Oh, okay.
The worst subject I ever had.
The best subject?
I liked them all. But I don't know why I took personal typing. Everybody said you had to know how to type.
Mm-hmm.
That was a disaster. I could make a T out of an R.
Yeah. Okay. So you graduate June 1947.
Right.
What did you do?
Well, decided, I said, I'm going to go to school somewhere. And at that time, Bloom Junior College was just started. And I said, well, so I enrolled at DePaul University.
Mm-hmm. So did you have any trouble getting into DePaul?
I got there. 64 East Lake Street. That's the building.
And you applied to DePaul, why?
I could live at home
Mm-hmm.
and go to school and work.
The Catholicism
Well,
of
yeah,
Maryland?
that had a
DePaul?
choice.
Okay. So, when was this? Was this arranged in the summer of '47, or had you?
I started in the semester started in the fall, well, in September '47. So I made the application.
So you had made the application regular time. It
Right.
wasn't a last minute thing.
Yeah, right.
Were many other Bloom students going to DePaul with you?
Yeah, Bill Wilczynski,
Mm-hmm.
and Bill went. It was on the. We used to take the IC. And
Okay, so you go in for classes and come home.
right. We have some morning classes and afternoon classes. Take the train home. The IC. We play pinochle on the train.
Uh-huh. And so you went there with a small group of friends.
Yeah, there were a lot of local girls worked downtown for the Illinois Central Railroad, and it was, commuters.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what were things like at Loyola in the late 1940s?
Loyola, DePaul.
DePaul.
Oh, it was a lot of veterans and students like myself. Cross, not too many women at that time, but it was interesting. I enjoyed it.
So what course did you embark on?
I majored in commerce, had accounting, finance,
Mm-hmm. And did you meet any new people there that of
Oh, yeah,
note?
met people. Lived in Chicago, In 4 years, you meet a lot of people.
Mhm. Much political involvement?
At that time, no, not too much.
So did you go through in 4 years? Or?
Yeah, graduated in '51.
So in 1951, you graduated. Then what?
Then I enrolled in law school.
Okay, which one?
I enrolled at DePaul. I didn't like it. So at that time, I said, I'm going to try enroll at Notre Dame Law School. So I was accepted at Notre Dame Law School in the I didn't take the final exam at DePaul. I left. Then I enrolled at Notre Dame in January of 47. No, 48. 48, yeah, 48.
And the law school was located in South Bend or in Chicago?
No, South Bend. I lived on campus.
So, how long did you take before you got your degree?
Well, what had happened, Mannion was the dean. That's the reason why I went there, so for some reason. And then in my last year, the last year, he retired, and they changed the
The curriculum?
examination schedules. They decided they were going to do like the bar exam, that they, instead of going by subject, they just give you a general exam. So a group of us felt that we should not be part of that. And if the new group comes in, fine. But we were under the old system. So some of us decided to leave. And there were a group of students left because of that reason.
So you left Notre Dame?
Right.
And where did you go back to?
I went back to DePaul.
And they let you take the final exams?
So I went there and spoke to the dean. He was the dean when I left. I said, "Can I finish up here?" And he said yes. So I enrolled back at DePaul.
So did this add to your time? How much time did you spend in law school then?
Well, I graduated in August of '54. I had to go to summer school to make up for a couple of classes.
Okay, what were you, when you weren't in class, what were you doing during those years in law school? Did you have summers off? Were you working at anything?
Probably was working probably at the racetrack. I didn't have a part-time job in the law office or anything. I worked at Savoy's. I always could get if there was something to do, I'd be able to do it.
Okay. And then you finally graduated
In '54.
In '54. What did you specialize in anything? Or?
No, just general law. I got a Juris Doctor because I had a bachelor's degree. Then I had to register for the draft. So I had deferments, with the Korean War and all the other things that happening during that time. But I was exempt. So in '55, I had to go to the Army. So
you were drafted?
Yeah, right. I was drafted in '50. Well, I got sworn in say the beginning of January '55, and I have to get my service papers. Was in the Army in probably near the end of January '55. I was admitted to the bar, and after I was admitted to the bar, I told him I was ready to go.
So you didn't do any work as a lawyer between your graduation and the bar admission?
I got admitted in say the middle of January. The end of January was in the Army.
And so what did the Army do with you?
Went to Fort Leonard Wood.
Okay.
Where my uncle was.
Yeah.
Never qualified for the rifle because I didn't have to qualify. I was probably the oldest soldier there. They were all young. I was a little older. And the sergeant would say, "You be barracks orderly, we got an inspection." So.
Okay, so what happened after basic training?
Then I was assigned to Fort Halliburton in Maryland, Baltimore.
Mm. In what activity?
I was assigned to the CIC, Counter Intelligence Corps.
And what did you do there?
Well, I went to school in Fort Halliburton. I finished the school there. So he said, you want to go overseas? And I said, well, I don't want to go to the Far East. If you can guarantee I can go to Europe, I would want to go to Europe. He said, no guarantees. So he said, we'll send you to San Francisco. So I went to the Presidio in San Francisco.
And so what were your duties there?
I was in the office, personnel office.
For the local unit?
Right, right. I didn't have a driver's license. We never had a car. So one of my requirements, I had to have a driver's license. So I went to the State of California Driving Bureau. I knew how to drive because I drove at the racetrack without a license on grounds. And I passed, but he said, you need experience. You have to drive with a licensed driver in the car. So as that, I didn't have any duties at all other than what to do. And we lived off campus. We had an apartment with some other soldiers. Jack Oliver, Stanley Trzaski. So we had an apartment on Clay Street. Good duty.
This was in San Francisco
Proper.
Proper, the city, the center. Okay.
We lived off campus. Had an apartment. I enjoyed it.
So how long did that last?
Well, it lasted 56.
2 years?
The captain, I did not quite 2 years. Because it got what we called Operation Santa Claus. Captain told me one day, he said, you got to get a driver's license. People are complaining that you don't have duty. I said, fine, I'll go to get a military license. I had a civilian license with a licensed driver. And I went to the compound, motor pool, and the guy took me out to drive. So I thought I did pretty good till it came to a stop sign. And I did what most people do. I did what we call a running stop, not a complete stop. And I wasn't a smart ass, and he said, what do you call that? I said, it's a running stop. He said, you're not going to get a license. He flunked me. So I went back and told the captain I flunked. He said, it's impossible. I flunked. So I said, oh, shucks. He said, okay, forget it. So a couple weeks later, the other thing, the interesting thing, when I was working at Savoy's and I would see Tony, and I knew he was political, and I became, I knew Senator Douglas through him somehow. I think I met him at Savoy's, Senator Douglas. And I really wanted to get to Fifth Army because Fifth Army was right around 56th and 57th was the headquarters,
Mm-hmm.
right on the lake. On the lake, so I figured I want to go there. That'd be nice, so I can work as a lawyer, you know. And I applied for a transfer. And the transfer was denied to go to the Fifth Army. I was in the Sixth Army there. So I wrote a letter to Senator Douglas. I said,
Okay.
you know, my parents live there in Illinois. I want to be close to them. If they need, I'm around. My sister was married. Eva was married that same year. And I wrote to him. So one day, the Captain Smith called. He said, the colonel wants to see you. So I went to see the colonel. And he said, I see you wrote a letter. I said, yes, I did. He said, you know, I really would like to do it, but I can't. But he said, if you need to go home for any reason, you can go home. Just let me know. I'll give you time off, whatever. So I didn't get transferred. So this was in say, October 56. Captain Smith comes back. He said, you're reassigned to the motor pool for 2 weeks. I said, okay. So I go, and lo and behold, the same guy is there that flunked me.
No.
He says, are you back? I said, yes, Captain Smith wants me to. I did practice for 2 weeks driving round and round in the Jeep, so I had to practice. He says, you're not going to pass. So I go back to Captain Smith. He said, now what? So he won't pass me. He says, leave. So I left. So about a couple weeks later, we were probably in November, I was due to get out January 23rd of 57. And he says, when are you getting out? I said, January 23rd, 57, next year. And he said, you know, we have what we call Operation Santa Claus. You're going to be discharged, say, December 20th. You're done. So I came home in December.
So you just came home. You didn't appeal to the senator again, or
No, I've
anything?
got
They
out of the
just let
Army.
you
I've
go?
got a discharge, an honorable discharge. And then that's when I got home. I went to see Mr. Scariano. I said, you need some help? And he hired me.
Oh, okay.
So that's where I started.
That's good. Let's see where we stand. Well, that's a couple of sessions. We can hold it there and
Well,
go for it
whatever.
later.